final solutions to money, relationships, wellness, and more. Shine a light onto your day and into your life. Power Your Life with Dr. Joanne White.
Welcome to Power Your Life. I'm Joanne White, your host, and my first guest is a world-renowned cosmetic surgeon with over 16 years of experience. Dr. Michael Furiello is a double board certified plastic surgeon here with us now to talk about the latest trends, both surgical and non-surgical, that's going to help you turn back the clock and look your best. Welcome. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You do so much, and you've worked with the errors that some other cosmetic surgeons have done. So what's that about, and how did we get to those errors?
Well, you know, the plastic surgery is great, but it's not for everybody. And also, I mean, there's risks involved.
Right.
You know? I mean, there's risk getting out of bed in the morning, but certainly when you do plastic surgery, you know, I would say it's safe to say 90+% of the time people are happy and get a great outcome, but there's a certain percent that may not be happy or may actually have a complication. So if an error does happen or there is a complication, fortunately you can, you know, fix most of them.
When you say complication, what kind of complication?
Well, you know, there's always infection, bleeding, maybe poor result or scarring. So there's always some issues that can happen.
Right.
Fortunately, it's very rare. And I think if you go to a board-certified doctor or a doctor with a lot of experience, you can keep those very low.
How do you fix it? Because people come to you, primarily women, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what do they say? Help, this is horrible, or what happens?
A large part of my practice now is secondary or revisionary surgery. So people, men and women, had a procedure that they weren't so happy with. So it's a case-by-case basis, but depending on the case, sometimes I can help them, and sometimes, unfortunately, I can't, or I can send them to someone else who may have more experience in that particular problem. But that is a big part of my practice now.
So, Dr. Furiello, you actually take a look at what's going on, and if you can't help them, which I think is great, because some doctors don't say that. They don't say, I can't help you. They try it, and then the results aren't so good, and then the person isn't satisfied yet another time.
Exactly. So plastic surgery is such a big field that there are actually people who specialize in parts of plastic surgery. So it's a head-to-toe, you know, field where you can basically do anything. So, for example, if someone, you know, was born without an ear, you know, that is something I wouldn't do. And there's a few people around the country who just do that. So I would send them to that person that does that. So you have to kind of know what you can do and what you can't do.
That's great. I've been listening to a lot of teens who have been, whether they're dissatisfied or something happens with bullying, they're not satisfied with how they look, or they've been ridiculed or teased, and they're wanting plastic surgery. And the numbers, I don't know it offhand, but the numbers seem pretty astounding. What do you recommend?
So I do see a lot of teenagers come in with their parents who, exactly what you say, maybe teased about maybe their nose or their breasts or something. And my feeling on teenage plastic surgery is if it's more for a reconstructive sort of thing, then I will do it. But for example, I won't.
Now, when you say reconstructive, what are you talking about?
Like, I think a breast reduction is reasonable to do in a teenager if they have enormous breasts, and not so much for the bullying, because that's a separate issue, but if they can't play sports
it's
or
painful,
and I think that's indicated. I also think rhinoplasty it's safe to do at that age, 15, 16, very common. I think that's reasonable, but certainly not liposuction or breast augmentation or other things just for cosmetic purposes I won't do, and I don't think should be done.
That's good. I'm glad, because I think other cosmetic surgeons are not drawing the line. And it seems to be that a lot of teenagers are getting it. And what happens to them afterwards? I mean, what happens when you're getting plastic surgery at a very young age? And your body is changing? What happens later on?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be scar tissue. It could not look good later on. I mean, I had someone last year who came with the mother and wanted liposuction to fit into a prom dress. And you know, the mother was actually pushing for it as much as the daughter. And of course, it's something that I absolutely wouldn't do, and I hope nobody would do. But that's what you're starting to see now. And I don't know if it's from the media or magazines, but to me that's not acceptable.
Right, and I agree. Now, people have procedures and there's a physical response. There's also an emotional aspect to it. What do you do and what do people go through emotionally when suddenly there's this change that it's almost like they're a new person, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. Post-operatively, there is definitely a depression or a weird emotion, I would say. Very common. And I think it's a combination of the anesthesia and it's maybe a remorse almost, like did I do the right thing? So I think pre-op I try and talk to patients about that, and then I expect it post-op, so it's a lot of hand-holding and just walking them through that, but it's very common.
Well, I'm glad that you actually prepare your patients for that because that's important.
Absolutely.
Good. We'll be right back. One more question, though. There's something that I'm thinking about in terms of some of the procedures, because you do surgical and non-surgical procedures, right?
Yes.
Tell us one new procedure before we move to the break, and then we'll talk about it further.
Well, radio frequency is one of the hot topics now, and the radio frequency is being used to tighten skin and get rid of cellulite. And it can be used on the face and body, and that's a very hot procedure right now.
Radio frequency. That's wonderful. And it's non-surgical, right?
Non-surgical, non-invasive, no downtime. So
so you can go right in and go right out, and you're different.
45 minutes to an hour, yes.
That's wonderful. We'll be right back. More with Dr. Michael Fiorillo when we return in a moment.